gas.
Welcome to All Gas, All Georgia Sports. I'm glad you guys are here, and football is back, baby. Let's go. It is a warm, familiar feeling when I am melting into my couch, watching football, looking at my phone for my fantasy scores, looking at, latest news, seeing who's tweeting what, just kind of go. It's just, yeah, it's good. It's good. I know a lot of people will talk down on, spending hours at a time just sitting on the couch doing nothing, but I don't look at it as I'm doing nothing. I am enjoying myself. I'm enjoying every minute of it, and I cannot wait for Red Zone. I'm going to have a dual monitor setup going on this year. Pretty excited about that because we have to do DirecTV and Hulu because I want DirecTV for Bally Sports South, but we can only get Red Zone on Hulu, and we're a Red Zone family. I've done Sunday Ticket. I like it. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. If you're a Sunday Ticket type of person, then good for you. That's fantastic. But I am a Red Zone person. I know that they do a lot of studies on how to stimulate the human mind at a high level consistently, and I think Red Zone has dialed that in better than anything else. Better than slot machines, better than TikTok, better than, those are the two that come to mind of as far as ways that you can just stay put for hours at a time, just doing one thing, not wanting to leave. And yeah, Red Zone is the best. It's 8 hours of uninterrupted football. It's perfect, and they only show you the best stuff. They give you the best highlights. The guy who does it, his name escapes me now, but whoever they got to commentate for Red Zone he was born to do that job. He was put on earth to do that. It's in his DNA. It's his destiny. And thank you for doing that. I'm going to look up his name right now because it's that important to me. Who commentates Red Zone? Scott Richard Hansen. Thank you, Scott Hansen. You're wonderful, and we're going to be seeing you soon. So, anyways, Red Zone. I feel almost dirty at the end of the day when I've spent the whole day watching Red Zone, but I don't. It fades quickly, but there's a bit of me that feels a little gross because I just don't move. On Red Zone days, I just, like whenever the Falcons are at an away game and I won't be at the game, that'll be an order in kind of day. Order some pizza. I'm going to do I'm going to set myself up to do as little as possible so I can move as little as possible and just melt and just be completely stimulated by NFL football with 4 different screens of Falcons, Red Zone, 2 different fantasy teams. It's the best thing ever, and we're back. 'Tis the season. We are fully in it. Thursday night football just happened. The Bills pummeled the Rams 31-10. So we're going to get into that. I'm going to start the show with the recap of that game, and then we're going to get into some Falcons and Georgia Bulldogs previews. What are we looking for? What kind of questions do I have, really? I have questions for the fans and for just the football world in general. Like, what are we looking for? What are we going to consider a success or a failure? And I'm going to hash some of that out on today's episode. So glad you're here, like I said, as always, and we are going to start off the show like we normally do with a trivia question for you. So your trivia question today is, what quarterback has the highest career QBR in the playoffs in NFL history? So what NFL quarterback in the playoffs has the highest QBR in their career? Some of you may know this, some of you may not, but we'll circle back around to that at the end of the show. So to get this thing started, Thursday night football, full recap of the game. The Bills were dominant over the Rams, and what I was doing too is I took notes throughout the game, and just as things came up, I jotted them down, and that's what I'm going to talk about. But I guess before I do that specifically, I'm just going to read off some stats for you guys, just so you can get a feel for. And many people listening to this probably watched the game, but just to put some numbers behind what you saw. Okay, we're going to start with the Bills. Josh Allen goes 26 for 31. 297 yards with 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Now, one of those interceptions was very strange. He hit, who was it? Was it Isaiah McKenzie? Oh, man, I can't remember who he threw it to. It might have been Isaiah McKenzie, but he hit him right in the chest, and basically it bounced off his chest, sort of, and just into the hands of the defender. Like, it was a perfect throw. It was just, like the defender just said, no, I'm just going to catch that instead. Like it was like very odd. So you can really count him as 3 touchdowns and 1 pick, but the stat sheet will read 2. Devin Singletary, they had a few different backs they were using, although James Cook only got 1 carry. I was hoping that he would, it's a Georgia guy. You want to see him succeed and do well. So McKenzie kind of gave up, speaking of Georgia people, McKenzie gave up that pick, kind of like the pick, honestly, if you could credit an interception to the receiver, that's what you would have done on that one. And then James Cook, he had 1 rush for 2 yards and a fumble. So, yeah, that wasn't good. So welcome to the NFL, buddy. Zach Moss, Devin Singletary combined for, what would that be, 63 yards on 14 carries between them. And Josh Allen had 10 carries of his own for 56 yards. He ran a lot in this game, and he was getting hit pretty hard. Stephon Diggs had a monster game. My wife actually drafted both Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, so good on her for doing that because Diggs went off. He had 8 receptions for 122 yards and a touchdown. And Gabe Davis, and he's the guy, Gabe Davis, he went off in that last playoff game against the Chiefs, that just electrifying game against the Chiefs. Gabe Davis, I want to say, got like 4 touchdowns in that game, literally. It was absolutely insane. And Jamison Crowder, he's a Bill now. So Gabe Davis goes 88 yards with a touchdown. Jamison Crowder, 28 yards, but he was a Commanders guy, football team guy for a while. So, yeah, I didn't know that he'd gone to the Bills. So that's an interesting development. Their defense looked fantastic. The Rams offense, so get this, Matt Stafford had an interesting game. He went 29 of 41 for 240 yards with 1 touchdown and 3 picks. 3 picks for Matthew Stafford in the opener. They were talking a lot about his elbow. The dude needs Tommy John surgery, basically, because there's different types of elbow injuries for people who throw. On one side, it's like tennis elbow. On the other side, it's maybe a golf thing, and he's got both, and I think that's very unique to baseball players, and I'm assuming that's Tommy John. That surgery is what usually fixes that with pitchers, but kind of both sides of his elbow are messed up. And, he went to the doctor. At one point, the doctor said, don't throw for like 12 weeks. And, we saw I think baseball-specific trainer who helped him do some physical therapy on it. He's playing through it. He's a really tough guy. I've seen that dude literally get, bent in half in a game, and he still has played. I mean, he's really tough. So not surprised that he played. And his throwing looked fine. I mean, he didn't look like he had lost any arm strength or anything like that. Who knows what was going on behind the scenes there. But a few, ugly-looking picks, just missed throws, which is not Stafford-like. I mean, he's always been a bit of a loose cannon, I guess. Maybe you could call him a gunslinger if he would fit into that category. I think that he would to an extent, but yeah, a little erratic tonight, not great, and the Rams honestly just didn't look that good, especially toward the end. I'm going to get into that, kind of, was it the Bills good, Rams bad, whatever. So rushing, Darrell Henderson was the lead back, and you know what? This is a bummer, okay? So I drafted Cam Akers, started him in my fantasy league, thinking like, man, a couple years ago he was their best back. He looked fantastic. Cam Akers out of Florida State, and in 2020 looked just really, really good. Powerful runner, patient runner, would break tackles, had great speed, great burst, and just, the eye test on Cam Akers was fantastic 2 years ago. And then I think he had an Achilles injury last year, basically missed the whole season, came back for a little bit toward the end, and he looked fine when he came back. But this year they're like, look, he's looking healthy. Everything on, the ESPN fantasy app was like, he's their lead guy. Darrell Henderson is their, sort of third down back, if that's what you want to call it. The catch it out of the backfield guy, kind of use him situationally. And it was the exact opposite of what they had said and suggested. And I started him. I don't know why. I don't know why I drafted him because I know he's a good football player, but he was the worst rusher by far. He had a whopping 3 carries. Cam Akers had a whopping 3 carries. So I'll go into it being given what I thought was reliable information, saying he is the lead back in LA. He's number one on the depth chart. Start him. Boom. Done. 3 carries for a whopping 0 yards. So yeah, he dropped a goose egg on me tonight. So first fantasy game, not looking too well to start, although at least I had Buffalo's kicker, who got plenty of opportunity to, kick extra points tonight. Cooper Kupp, he was really the highlight for the Rams. If there is a highlight for the Rams, it's Cooper Kupp. He has 13 catches for 128 yards and a touchdown. The dude's unreal. And I don't think I fully appreciated the Cooper Kupp story until tonight. They were referencing how small he was. I mean, I think he literally, I don't know if this was a joke or not. Um, if anyone in the comments wants to say, if you know this, but I heard something like he wore ankle weights to weigh in when he was like a freshman in high school or something, or maybe college, but he was such a tiny guy. If you look at pictures of him when he's in high school, it's like, oh, like you're dressing up as a football player for Halloween. Like that's what he looked like in his pads. It was your like, playing a football player. You're playing football, but not playing football. You're playing quote unquote football. You know what I mean? It just, he looked so, it looks ridiculous. And then to think that that kid ended up working as hard as he did to become the Triple Crown winner last year, led the league in receptions, touchdowns, and yardage. And, it's like, maybe just because he looks still pretty inconspicuous compared to a lot of these receivers. When you think of like electrifying receivers in the NFL, you think of these, physical specimens like a DK Metcalf, like an AJ Brown, these big, strong, fast, just prototypes, just created in a lab. And Cooper Kupp just does not seem like that, and but he's amazing. I mean, his route running's fantastic. His hands are great. He had this catch in the end zone where his one touchdown catch, he caught it in the back of the end zone, and you're wondering, like, okay, did he get 2 feet down? It was one of those. It was close to the back of the end zone. And the question is, did he get 2 down? Obviously, of course, like many plays in the NFL. And when they showed the slow motion, he actually got 3. Like he did a double tap and then got a third for good measure. And they did it so fast. So his feet are fantastic. Route running's great. His hands are great. It is time that we, recognize Cooper Kupp for what he is, which is an elite, top-tier wide receiver in the league. I say it's time we recognize that. I think everyone's recognized that, maybe just except for me. So I'm recognizing it. Congratulations to you, Cooper Kupp, for the season you had last year and just for the start to this season. What a great game that he had. Unfortunately, the rest of your team did not match that sort of performance. So here are my notes that I took throughout the game. So excited to start, okay? So in the first half, first off, great national anthem. Got chills. Whoever sang that, you did a great job. They did it right. You don't want them to mess with it too much. It's a beautiful song when you sing it right, when you sing it like it's supposed to be sang. It's just the notes themselves that, it's just, they do the song itself does the heavy lifting, but when you can go in and just, boom, nail it. And she did a fantastic job. And The Rock opened the game, just like he did for the Super Bowl. I'd be fine with The Rock opening every single game in the NFL, always, all the time. Just, I don't know how you would do that, or at least just give him, the Monday night game or the Thursday night game, whatever, fly him around, pay him whatever he wants. It's amazing. I mean, the dude is awesome. I'm a Rock guy. I'm a Rock fan. He's just, I don't know. I don't know if I'm too excited to see Black Adam. I was wondering, I literally wrote this down in the first half. A couple superhero movie trailers, and I'm wondering, who is genuinely excited about new superhero movies at this point? Unless it's just kids. But like, are there grown adults? Are there grown adult men who are seeing all of these superhero things come out and they go, "Oh my God, that looks so good. I've got to go to the theaters and see that. Okay, can I get tickets early?" I mean, I've seen like, when you see new movies come out, I just, like, when The Joker came out, I was like, man, this looks like a really dark, interesting, crazy movie. I went and saw it in theaters because it was like, it seemed such a different take on the Joker. So I guess that's technically a superhero movie, but, yeah, I don't know. I kind of assume that they're all the exact same now, not to diss The Rock or Black Adam, maybe it's going to be good. I have no idea. I don't know anybody in my life who actually cares at all about a single superhero movie and who has cared for the last, like, few years. I don't know. Who are you? If you're one of those people, correct me. Email us, talkingallgas@gmail.com, comment in wherever you hear this. I don't know. But please, if you are actually really just jacked for all these new superhero movies, I don't know. I want to know if there is one. or if it's just like your kids, which that would make a lot more sense. So maybe I'm just getting older. That could be it. But I mean, God, man, there's so many. So, anyways, moving on to the actual game. I put this note down. I said the Bills' opening drive was basically perfect, and that pretty much alluded to what we would see from their offense for the rest of the game. Even though they had a couple of turnovers, Josh Allen had 2 picks. There was a fumble, so there was a lot of turnovers in this game. So that obviously swung things around a lot when that happened, but they just looked efficient. I mean, Josh Allen, even with those 2 picks, what did I say? He was 26 for 31. Not a lot of incompletions by him. And in the first half, both quarterbacks were actually playing like that. It was the second half that Matt Stafford sort of started to fall apart, even though he had a pick or 2 in the first, But, yeah, the Bills, I mean, they're the truth. Really, really good. So, yeah, opening drive was pretty much perfect, and that was foreshadowing what we were going to see for the rest of the game from their offense. I just put Cam Akers with like 50 million exclamation points because he had 2 carries in the first half for negative yards, and then he got his 3rd and final carry in the second half. Couldn't believe it. What is going on there? What's the story with Cam Akers? I mean, like he's a good running back. You just didn't play him. Darrell Henderson was your guy, so I don't know what I'm going to do there. No one's going to trade for him at this point. I'll just have to swap him out for next week. But yeah, threw up a goose egg. Couldn't believe that. First half, both quarterbacks were very efficient, but a lot of turnovers, fumbles, and picks. And okay, this is serious. Okay, I remember hearing about this, and I got pretty excited about it. I was laughing. Granted, I thought it was a little ridiculous that Ozzy Osbourne was going to perform at halftime. But this was all over the news. Sort of. If you follow sporting news. It's like Ozzy Osbourne set to perform the halftime show on Thursday Night Football. And I was like, hell yeah, the Prince of Darkness, baby. Let's go. And they went, okay, Ozzy Osbourne's about to perform. And then they cut to him, and it's like the commentators are talking over him performing. And then they go, let's check out Ozzy Osbourne's performance. So they cut to him in the middle of a song. They play 3 seconds of his performance. And then they go back to talking about the game, and I was like, you guys, you can't just cut off the Prince of Darkness like that. What are you doing? Like, you're going to completely just take the limelight away from Ozzy? I mean, slap in the face to the father of metal. Should be ashamed. You cannot silence the darkness. They tried, but, he'll be okay. I think he's got a new album coming out, but he looked good. Ozzy looks good. I mean, his teeth are blinding. Hey, good for him. But couldn't believe that. I was genuinely excited. Like, my wife, she was about to go to bed, and she was like, well, I'll stay up to see Ozzy Osbourne, because, like, how can you, you have to just see, like, what's this going to look like? Is it going to be good, or is it going to be a total train wreck? We got none of that. So shame on you, NBC. Shame on you for depriving us from, Ozzy. Whatever. So back to the game, the things that, matter more in this. In the second half, Josh Allen had this nasty stiff arm. Last name of the guy that he stiffed arm was Scott. Don't know the first name, but he had this scramble, and I forget how big he is. Josh Allen is a really large dude, and yeah, he manhandled this guy. Stiff-armed this dude into the ground. Stiff-armed his back flat on the ground for a first down. It was really sick. In the Bills' defense, there's no wonder they're ranked first in most fantasy leagues. They were dominant. Their pass rush was fantastic. They stole the show as far as pass rushing is concerned, which is ironic considering you have probably the best football player on the other side of the ball with the Rams and Aaron Donald. And he had a great game too. He certainly made his presence felt at points, but the Bills' defense was fantastic. They, well done on them for picking up Von Miller. He's got plenty of gas left in the tank, and I think he signed like a 4-year deal. So, they're banking on him having some gas left, but he looked great. He had a few different plays that he affected. He had a sack or 2. I don't know how many, but he looked great out there. He looked fast. Yeah, it's kind of cool seeing these veteran guys go into these teams. Bobby Wagner is now playing for the Rams, so that's interesting, something to keep your eye on. He had a decent game. It's the Bills look so good. It's kind of like that overshadowed a lot of, I think, some of the defensive playmakers that the Rams have, because they have plenty. But Yeah, anyways, well, speaking of actually of defensive playmakers for the Rams, Jalen Ramsey, Stephon Diggs kind of punished him tonight. Stephon Diggs destroyed Jalen Ramsey, and he let him know about it. I mean, there was a couple of plays where he caught one ball on the sideline and was getting in his face. You could tell that he was pointing at Jalen. And I've heard, I mean, it seems like Jalen's a big trash talker. He seems like the guy that a lot of people want to destroy when they go up against him because of just the way that he talks on the field. But there was a long pass in the fourth quarter that really sealed the deal for the Bills, and it went right over Jalen Ramsey's head, right into the breadbasket of sliding Stephon Diggs, and he got up and just let him have it. He let Jalen Ramsey have it, and yeah, not a good look for Jalen tonight. He, Stephon put over 100 yards on him, and looked great. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure Jalen Ramsey will be fine. He's a great player, but he is the kind of guy that like I enjoy watching play. Jalen Ramsey, that is. But I do want to see him get destroyed. I had the same thing about Richard Sherman when he was with the Seahawks. I like wanted teams to beat him. Guys who talk a lot, they have that effect on you. You just kind of and good on them. It's like what Floyd Mayweather does to people. When you talk a lot, you get people watching, you get people's eyes turning, and in tuning in, and it makes it more exciting. But I did take some pleasure in seeing Diggs, kind of slap Ramsey around tonight. So Stafford, one of his 3 picks. One of them in the fourth quarter, it was still pretty close. Like the game felt close, although you could just even before the score got out of hand, you could feel the Bills had it. But it was like 17-10 at one point, and I think when it was 17-10 or maybe like 21-10, something like that, it was not out of reach for the Rams by any stretch. But in the fourth quarter, Stafford throws a pick on a no-look pass like over the middle, and that's a bad look. It's like no-look passes. It's like when you do them, they look great, but if you throw a pick in the fourth quarter when the game counts and you're trying to do that, oof, because he missed the throw. He overthrew him. It was a no look over the middle, over the guy's head. Bills picked it off. So, yeah, I'm a Stafford fan, but that was not his finest moment. And my question to end this game is, did the Rams look bad or the Bills look good or both? I vote both. I think both teams had, they were both, I don't know, there was a lot of turnovers in the first half, but they both looked good in the first half. It was the Bills' defense stuck out to me the most early on because the Rams just could not keep pace with Josh Allen and what he was doing on the other side of the ball. And it was because the Bills' defense was just shutting them down, 3 and out after 3 and out. The touchdown drive that they had where Cooper Kupp made that great catch, that drive felt like a struggle. I want to say they got a pass interference penalty that helped them out big time on that drive. So it was like, you had a really timely penalty, and it just felt like like it was just more of a stretch for them to get yards than it did for the Bills. So I don't know. I love week 1 because all these narratives are going around, and you always are going to judge the beginning of the season based off of how things ended last season. So, I mean, how many times? It's every single year, pretty much, that you go into the year going, well, I know who's going to the Super Bowl. I know who I think's going to do great this year. I know who's going to suck. And it just never ceases to amaze me that the NFL, I think more than any other sport, surprises me in that way because, a lot of teams can just be good. I mean, it's like you have certain players and certain organizations that are going to be a little more consistent than others, but the NFL is really unique in that way where I just feel like everyone really does kind of have a chance at the beginning of the year. So with that being said, you see the defending Super Bowl champions, the Rams, who just took care of business all year last year, them coming out looking the way that they did, it was surprising. So as the weeks progress, I'll be interested to see if, the Rams are actually not as good as they were, which I don't think that's going to be the case. They're too talented. Or if the Bills are just that good, because I think I now that I'm saying this out loud, I think the Bills have a better chance of being that good than the Rams being a bad team. Like the Rams are going to win a lot of games. They have too much talent not to. They have great coaching. It's like Sean McVay's proven it. He's legit. He's the guy. And Stafford's going to be fine. Their defense is going to be fine. So, yeah, I guess saying that, I think the Bills may have just looked that good. So they were dominant. 31-10 win for the Bills, and great way to kick off the season. We're here. We're in it. The season has begun. So moving on to the Falcons preview. So I'm going to be at the game. I'm going to be at all the home games this year. Really excited for that. And just can't wait to get in that stadium and see what the energy in Mercedes-Benz is going to be like. You know, Falcons Nation, let's rise up, baby. I'm going to be front and center with you, arm in arm. You know, God, I can't wait to see this team. I cannot wait to see what this team is going to look like. It's totally new. I've said this before, but this is the second time in my lifetime that I've seen a complete culture change in the Falcons organization. This is really the second or the third quarterback that I've seen. I mean, Chris Chandler, when I was really young, when I was like in elementary school, I remember watching that team go to the Super Bowl. So I don't totally count that, although you could. But Vic was the first quarterback that I was like, oh my God, I'm a Falcons fan for life now. And then, you know, you had Joey Harrington in like 07. 08, Matt Ryan came, and it was Matt Ryan's team for the next 13 years or whatever it was. So this really, you know, is the third, or I guess second time that I can remember seeing a significant quarterback and face of the franchise change. So what's that going to look like? And my questions for Falcons fans, really, Falcons Nation, is what would you consider a success or a failure this year for a Falcons? Aside from just being awesome or sucking, but like specifically, like is it the record? Because last year, I mean, obviously it all comes down to the record. That's what everything means. But last year they were 7-10, which is shocking that they won 7 games considering the lack of talent that they had last year. You can thank Matt Ryan for that. And I think good play calling from Arthur Smith. So they went 7-10 last year. Just a 2-game swing gets us at 9-8. You know, would that be a success? Do you want more or less? I mean, people are calling for the Falcons to go 4-13 this year. And I'm like, well, how can you say that when we've added so much depth? CBS, as you predicted, that we go 4-13. I'm like, how can you say that considering we've added so much depth? And it's like, oh yeah, we, you know, lost a Hall of Fame quarterback. Okay, fair enough. That's why. But just a 2-game swing gets us 9-8. 3-game swing is 10-7. We could flip that around with not that. I mean, we had some close losses last year. So, yeah, you know, what are you expecting? What would surprise you? What would you consider a success? What would you consider a failure? Obviously, going worse than 7-10 is a failure. You don't want to trend down. That's not good. I called 10-7. I know it's an optimistic take. It's an optimistic prediction. It's a biased prediction. I'll own that 100%. I think they're going 10-7. Is that an objective look and preview at the Falcons season? Absolutely not. No way. But that's what I think, and that's what I'm going to stick with. I would consider it a success if we, you know, pulled off a 9-8 year, considering all the changes that have happened. If we went 10-7, that'd be fantastic. Anything more than that, I would be shocked. I really would be. In all seriousness, if we did 10-7 or better, I'm going to be shocked. But yeah, what are our expectations really for this year? So I'm looking at, you know, specific position groups and players. I'm going, okay, offensive line, receivers, pass rush, the QB play, the running backs, the depth. All these things were terrible for us last year, aside from the QB play. Although the stats for Matt Ryan don't look that good, he actually played a lot better than what his stat line shows last year. Anyone who watched those games closely knows what I'm talking about. But just to give you an idea, from bloggingdirty.com, here's where the Falcons ranked last year in the NFL. So, offensively, 303 yards per game, 29th in the NFL. 218 passing yards per game, 16th in the NFL. 85 rushing yards per game, 31st in the NFL. That's bad. And 18.4 points per game, 26th in the NFL. So offensively, I mean, that's just huge. And really, to me, I know that I've sort of gone back and forth on what my biggest question marks are and what I think our biggest needs are offensively. I know they drafted skill players, you know, for that reason. They drafted skill players in defense with Drake London specifically. But I don't know. I think the offensive line might be a bigger glaring hole in our team because Ryan just could never, ever get comfortable in the pocket. We were joking on the last episode when Zach was here with me, or maybe it was 2 episodes ago, but at how last offseason, Matt Ryan concentrated a lot on his speed, and they emphasized his speed. His trainers said, we want you to get faster. The coaching staff said, we want you to get faster. We want you to be able to move. Even though he's not necessarily a quote-unquote mobile guy, they said, we want you to improve on that aspect. And our joke was like, yeah, no, we didn't improve the offensive line. We just want you to get faster because you're going to need it. And he did. And he just, I mean, how many seasons now has that been the narrative around Matt Ryan? Is we can't get him enough time, and he still manages to rattle off 4,000 plus yards almost every single year of his career, literally. You know, what did he have, 10 in a row, 9 in a row? I don't know. It's insane. The dude puts up numbers, but he does it off of his back, and that's why I think he's going to be good in Indy, because if you watched him last season, he did not look like an aging quarterback. People would look at just his stats over his career and they went, oh, he's getting older. Of course, that's what his year was like last year. That is so not the story with Matt Ryan. So if the Colts can protect him, he's got plenty of good football left in him. I guarantee it. I would put money that he has, well, a significantly better season statistically this year than he did last year. I could be wrong. I might be wrong. I don't know. But that's what I think. And I watch a lot of Falcons football. So, yeah, I'm looking at the offensive line. You know, I think a success would be if we can get a good offensive line. Because if you give any of these quarterbacks enough time, I mean, Mariota, you know, he's an athletic guy. Desmond Ritter's an athletic guy. They can both move. They're very, very fast. They're very strong, very fast, and they can throw on the run. So if you give them time, you know, I mean, the receivers, our receivers are shallow, I guess, you know, not a deep receiver group. I get it. But these quarterbacks are athletic enough that they can make something happen if you just give them time. I mean, it's won and lost in the trenches. So I'm looking at that big time. But those offensive stats are terrible. And they might be just as bad as our defensive stats. So here's some notable defensive stats last year, still from bloggingdirty.com. 364 yards allowed per game, 26th in the NFL. 232.5 passing yards allowed per game, 18th in the NFL. 131.9 rushing yards allowed per game, 27th in the NFL, and 27 points allowed per game, tied for 29th in the NFL. So Dean Pease, we need you, buddy. And that's one of the things that I'm specifically looking at is how are we going to look year 2 under Dean Pease? You know, he came out and said that last year he used about 60% of his defense because the guys weren't really ready. And honestly, I'm a big Dean Pease fan. I've watched a lot of his press conferences. And I'll say this too, if you're looking for like Falcons content just to kind of go down the rabbit hole with the Falcons, look at Dean Pease in a press conference. He's awesome. He's got so much football knowledge, so much in fact that this year is his 50th year coaching. It's including high school and college, of course, but 50th year coaching for Dean Pease. And he didn't get a cake. He mentioned that. They asked him, did you get a cake? He was like, no. I'm like, it's your 50th year. Get that man a cake, Terry. Terry Fontenot, do something for Dean Pease. 50 years? Are you kidding me? That's unbelievable. But so much football knowledge. And when you hear him talk in these press conferences, I love it because he gives you these ways of thinking. He gives you these reasonings for why he's progressing the team the way that he is and why now that the team is ready to unleash 100% of the defense. They have better players. He's mentioned that in a press conference just today, I believe, he was like, these guys, everyone's really bought in and really being coachable. He's having a lot of fun, and he seemed genuine when he said that. He was like, no, I really am. 50 years in, this is one of the better off seasons that I can remember, or better, spring trainings, fall camps, all that. He said the guys are just really coachable. They're having fun. They're really taking things on, and the word that he described was fun. Which, good for him, man, for being as old as he is, 50 years doing this and still having fun. I think we all, would like to have that kind of experience in life. But yeah, great man to listen to. One of the things he was talking about, too, that I just as a football guy, I love hearing things like this because this isn't something that I would have expected to have gotten from a press conference. But he was talking about the difference between coaching from the box and on the field. And they were like, "What are you going to do? Do you have any tendencies? What have you done in the past?" He's like, "You know what? Look, I've done both." And he said, when I'm up in the box, it's not as loud. I don't have fans yelling at me. I don't have a million different coaches and players yelling at me. I can really see everything that's going on. I can have the whole staff up there with me. We can have the screens. We can see, have a great view of the field. It's a very unique bird's eye view of what's going on when you're in the box. And so you can really zone in and get in the groove with calling these plays. And it's, kind of you can get in your happy place a little bit up in the box. However, he said the cons of that are when you're on the field, you get a chance to touch the players when you need to. You get a chance to, if you're on the phone with somebody, because they have that phone that calls up to the box. He's like, I might want to talk to Lorenzo Carter, and then I might want to get Deion Jones on the phone, and then I might want to get Terrell on the phone. But by the time you talk to one guy, you've probably run out of time, and they got to get back out there, and you got to go quick. And he was like, when you're on the field, you can get a chance to pull all these guys. You can see how they're reacting, their body language, how they look. You can talk to them when they need to. You can kind of feel the game out from being on the sidelines like that in a way that you can't when you're up in the box. So hearing him articulate that and walk you through that entire process is fascinating to me as a football fan, hearing a coach talk about things like, it wasn't just vanilla like, we like cover two or this is what they do offensively. Dean Pease is great for that sort of content. You hear just really the way that the mind of a football just genius works. And I would call him a football genius considering it's his 50th year doing this, and he's coached some great defenses. So, yeah, what is it going to look like year 2 under Dean Pease? We've drafted defensively. We have for a couple of years now. We have some talent. We have a lot more depth. Terry done a good job bringing some guys out. I love that we have Lorenzo Carter. That's fantastic. I can't wait to see what he's done. Who was it? A coach at Georgia said that when he was in college that Lorenzo Carter was the most talented football player he's ever coached. And, long guy, big guy, fast. He's got all the tangibles, you know what I mean, as to be a good football player. So, yeah, welcome home. Welcome home, Lorenzo. Let's go. Rise up, baby. But we need, truly, please do that because we need pressure defensively. I think we were the last in the league by a large margin in sacks last year. Every quarterback just had so much time in the pocket. It was terrible. And it's such a frustrating thing to watch when you're seeing how much time these guys get against us, and then you see Matt Ryan just getting the ball and just falling back instantly. I will say I'm not going to miss Matt Ryan's sacks because although the offensive line has let him down a lot in his career, you can kind of just give him a hard sneeze and he's going to fall down. Matt Ryan would just crumble at a fart. It was kind of ridiculous. He there were so many times where I saw him go down where I literally don't even think he got touched. He kind of just crumbled. He just melted to the floor. And maybe after getting hit for 10 years straight, you just start to kind of anticipate that. But, not going to miss that. So, yeah, frustrating, though. Frustrating as a Falcons fan when you see your quarterback go down that quick and these other guys just have all the time in the world. So, yeah, are we going to get some pressure this year? God, I hope so. I really, really hope so. So those are my questions for the Falcons. The Saints, they have a really talented team. That's legit. During the whole Deshaun Watson fiasco, people were saying the Saints have the roster to compete now, but he's from Georgia. When we thought it was New Orleans or Atlanta, they were like, if you want to win, go to New Orleans. They're ready to do that now. Atlanta, that's going to probably mean more to you because you're from there, you were the ball boy and all that. And then, of course, the Browns decided to give him their firstborn. And so, yeah, that's what ended up happening. But, the Saints are good. So I'm also wondering too, is Drake London going to play? He's going to play. Now all the reports are saying that he's been a limited participant in practice. Not surprising there. I think the official call is going to come on Saturday, the day before the game. I think he's going to play. It's from the beginning, from the get-go, they've said this isn't really a serious injury, although very hard to find out what actually happened. I think it's a bone bruise or something, or he bruised his knee. Nothing serious, but he has not practiced really since that first preseason game. and he looked great in that one catch that he had. So there's that. But um, everything points to that he's going to play. But until I see it on Saturday, I'm a little nervous about it because if he's not playing, I'm like, oh my god. Hopefully you drafted Kyle Pitts in your fantasy league. But I think he's going to play. And here's something too that both Mariota and Winston, I forgot about this. They were the top two picks back to back in 2015. Remember that? And the narrative, and they've had similar careers too when you think about it. Like they did decent initially with the teams they got drafted to, and then not good enough to really establish themselves. And then of course Tom Brady's going to kick anyone out, and Tannehill kind of won the job in Tennessee, but they've moved around since. And they're looking to kind of revamp their careers. I think Jameis Winston has already done that. I think that's safe to say in New Orleans, and hoping that Marcus Mariota can do the same. But very interesting at what their just life in the NFL has been, considering they were back-to-back picks in 2015. And if you remember, Watson was, or not Watson, Winston. Jameis Winston was kind of labeled as like your quote-unquote, like he's your winner. He's got that energy. He's the guy you'd want to be in the huddle with. That's what I was saying back then, at least. Like, hearing the way that Jameis Winston would just get people hyped up, and this is before it got awkward, because I do think that his whole shtick has gotten kind of awkward. But if he plays well, I don't think the players or New Orleans fans are going to care. But yeah, before it got awkward, I was like, man, I would want to be in the huddle with him more than anybody. The dude was electrifying when he was in college. He had so much energy. So he kind of had that, like, he's your winner. He's your energy. He's got those intangibles, all those things that you talk about. Even with him getting in some trouble, in college or whatever, and having a lot of just, like, kind of hilarious stories, honestly, in college, I didn't care. I was like, I would want to play with that guy. And Mariota won the Heisman. First Polynesian ever to win the Heisman. First player from Hawaii ever to win the Heisman. And he was coming into the draft, and they were like, but he's more talented. He's probably got more of the tangibles. And so who are you going to take first overall? And ended up going Winston, number 1 overall to Tampa Bay, and Mariota, number 2 overall to Tennessee. So, but apparently they've stayed close throughout their NFL career. They did a lot of training together out in California. I think leading up to the draft, Mariota has said openly that he is one of Jameis Winston's biggest fans, really big fan of him. And, I think that's cool. I honestly forgot about that whole, every draft, there's like a narrative, obviously, especially by the time the draft hits, because we've had enough time between the Super Bowl and the draft to just start, making up stories and adding narratives to things. But that was a big one back in that draft in 2015. I remember that, especially because you have 2 quarterbacks going 1 and 2. Who are you going to take? And so that was fun. So cool that they're going to be playing against each other, I guess. And Cameron Jordan, I saw this in some headlines. So he's a huge trash talker. He's unfortunately kind of earned his right to do so. He's talked a lot of trash against the Falcons. His career against the Falcons, this is from sportstalkatl.com. In 22 career games against Atlanta, he has totaled 23 sacks, so that's more than 1 a game, 40 QB hits, good lord, 25 tackles for a loss, 8 passes defended, and a 14-8 overall record against the Falcons. So Cameron Jordan has had our number. However, he said, essentially, I can't source this interview. I couldn't find where it came from, but recently he said that he thinks the Falcons offense can be lethal. And one of the things that's been a struggle for the Saints is that they have zero film really to work off of. They knew what they were getting in Matt Ryan because they were so familiar with him every year in and year out. You play him twice a year for years and years and years, you kind of know what you're going to get from a guy. But they had to go back and watch Las Vegas tape. They had to go back and watch Tennessee tape. And Kyle Pitts coming into year 2, how much different, how much better is he going to be? They don't know anything about Drake London. Russell Gage is gone, Julio's gone, Ridley's suspended. They're like, what are we getting out of this? Cordero Patterson, like, who knows what he's going to do? He could rush 10 times for 70 yards and then catch 10 passes for another set. You have no idea how they're going to use him. So, yeah, kind of cool to hear him with all, and he does. He lays it on thick. I kind of respect it, It does bum me out sometimes when he trash talks the Falcons, but, whatever. Is what it is. But he's showing a little respect to the Atlanta Falcons because there's a lot of unknowns. So Yeah, that was interesting. I guess if you hear a guy like that who's so notoriously trash talking us give us a compliment, it's a little noteworthy. So that's all that I got for the Falcons. I cannot wait to go to this game on Sunday, and it's opening up against the Saints, which is just should be an electric atmosphere. I'm hoping that Falcons Nation will indeed rise up, and I know that I will. So gonna have a absolute blast at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and another shout out to the staff at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, because when we were there for the preseason game, the staff is fantastic. They were so hyped and energetic and welcoming, and they were just can't wait to feel that energy again. So, going to close this thing out with a little UGA preview, a little less information on the UGA preview because they're playing Samford at 4 p.m. in Athens. Athens opener this weekend. Should be a bloodbath, assuming all goes well. I would like to see, some of our depth, honestly, assuming that we do what we should do this game. I personally want to see Brock Vandegrift. I want to see what he's all about. I would love to see him come in the second half. I know that Carson Beck came in at the end of the game against Oregon. Appropriately so. We had enough of a lead to go ahead and give him the shot, but I want to see what Brock's got. He, very exciting recruit coming out of high school. And he looks awesome. I think Brock Vandegrift is the coolest looking Georgia player that we've had in a long time. The long flowing red hair, looks like a Viking, got this like thick burly beard. He just looks badass. So I just kind of, with the hype surrounding him, coupled with just the fact that he just looks like he should lead the Georgia Bulldogs, I'd love to see him. I'd love to see what he got. I know he's an athletic guy, really fast, bit of a dual threat, and a cannon, as far as I know from what I've heard. So it'd be fun to see him get some playing time this weekend. And questions for Georgia fans, kind of like my questions for Falcons fans. What do you want to see this year? So going into this next stretch on our schedule, I realized the next team that's currently ranked that we play is Florida in October, on October 29th. And that's the only team on our schedule that's currently ranked as of right now. That's the next ranked team that we play. So what are we going to have to do from here on out in order to be a success? So considering that Florida's the next ranked team that we play, do we have to blow everyone out by like 40 points in order to kind of maintain our, ranking, our status, our, the fear that we impose on people, the reputation that we've built? I mean, building this kind of reputation is tough to do, and I imagine it's even tougher to keep hold of it. Just ask Nick Saban, what does he have to do to continuously motivate his guys? And I think that Kirby Smart's doing a great job of that. He's certainly, he doesn't seem to get too high or too low, at least in his interviews and press conferences. But yeah, how much are we going to have to beat people by in order to kind of keep this going? Like if we have a close game, if we have a game where we win by 10, before we play Florida, are people going to look at us going, uh-oh, does Georgia have it? I'm sure they will. Does Stetson Bennett have to break records in order to be taken seriously? If he has a game where he goes 13 for 18 with 220 yards and one touchdown, would that be considered a failure for Stetson Bennett? Because he's always been looked at as that game manager, kind of good, feel-good story. But after that game against Oregon, people are like already saying he's a Heisman candidate. It's like, okay, chill out. But he did play amazing in that game. But, is he going to have to keep putting up numbers like that in order to be taken seriously? Because I could just imagine, against Samford, let's say we run the ball a lot against Samford. Two different running backs get over 100 yards and they just ground and pound and just that's how we win the game. And Stetson Bennett has a stat line like that. Let's say, 13 for 18, a couple hundred yards and a touchdown. Would they go, Stetson Bennett, he's back to the beat doing what he does. What does he have to keep doing to, keep the newfound reputation that he's had post-Oregon? In the defense, if the defense gives up 20 in any game leading up to, let's just call the Florida game. Let's say if from now until Florida on October 29th, if we give up 20, are people going to start saying that, oh, we're not the same, we can't compete against, the big guys? Like, it's just crazy to think that we have now jumped into this new realm of dominance where things are going to start being looked at a lot more closely, and that happens, I think, with all good teams. And it's a good problem to have. The Braves have had that same thing this year where, like, if one guy in our bullpen is struggling, we're like, oh, man, we got to iron out the wrinkles, but it's not like we need a whole bullpen. It's, oh, this one guy struggled, send him back down, let's get this guy in there instead. Like, when you have a good team, the smaller things get a little bit louder, but it's a good problem to have. Be grateful for it, Georgia fans. True Georgia fans have been there through thick and thin, have been there for a long time. We're loyalists. It's been years and years and years, and we have finally reached that place that I think all really dedicated and passionate fan bases wish that they can get to. So soak it up. Enjoy it. Get ready. Get ready for if we have a close game between now and any ranked opponent, people are going to start questioning, can they do it? Are they for real? Do they have the juice? Can they compete with the big boys still? Are they really like Alabama, And Alabama fans in the comments of our videos that we've been posting, they're like, "Oh yeah, talk to us in 7 championships, buddy." Hey, I get it, whatever. You guys have done that. That's true, but you cannot deny at all that the University of Georgia is on that level now, and it's a wonderful sight to see. So, closing out the episode, we're going to give you the trivia answer. So, if you remember, the trivia question was, what NFL quarterback has the highest QBR in the playoffs? What NFL quarterback has the highest QBR in the playoffs? And this answer is Josh Allen. So speaking of Josh Allen, his career playoff QBR is 106.6, and second all-time is Patrick Mahomes with a playoff QBR of 105.7. And last season, with a minimum of 40 passes, Josh Allen set the record for the highest QBR in any playoff, in any single playoff run. Minimum of 40 passes. Beat out Joe Montana, and I can't remember the other guy who was on that list, but I'm pretty sure that both Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen became 1 and 2 on that, record list from their game they played against each other last year. Also, before that, remember, Josh Allen destroyed the Patriots before they played the Chiefs. Destroyed the Patriots. Had basically a perfect game against a Bill Belichick defense, and then went in to play what I think was the most exciting football game I've ever witnessed, which was that Buffalo-Kansas City game in the playoffs last year in Arrowhead. So, yeah, that's your 1 and 2, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. And I get it, too. It's a smaller sample size. How can you really take a career QBR? Matt Ryan's in the top 10. Fun fact, I want to say he's number 5. Aaron Rodgers is in the top 10. I think Russell Wilson is 10. So, yeah, those guys have a much larger sample size to work with. But still, that's where it stands. Josh Allen, number 1, best career QBR in the playoffs. And he had a hell of a game on Thursday night. So good job, man. Congrats. Keep it up. Keep going. You're a fun dude to watch. He, it's like the only person I can really think of that I think has been similar was like Cam Newton in his prime, with just how big and athletic and strong he is, coupled with how strong his arm is, how accurate he is. I mean, when Cam Newton had that run with the Panthers a few years, the dude was unstoppable. And Josh Allen, yeah, he's right there. Has been for a couple years now, so this isn't new. So with all that, I appreciate you guys listening as always, and happy Friday. Happy Friday, and this might be the happiest of Fridays because football is back in full swing. We made it. We're here. We're going into mid-September. The weather's about to change. Football's going to be on the TV. It's about to be chilly weather. Soak that in for a second. It's about to be appropriate for you to make a pot of chili. So you know what? Add that to your gratitude list. There's my hopeful, or encouraging message to leave you guys on. Make a list of what you're grateful for. Gratitude is a gateway emotion. If you start in a place of gratitude, wonderful things follow, and be grateful that very shortly you are going to be allowed to make a pot of chili and no one's going to look at you weird. Wonderful. Excellent. Awesome. Fantastic. So thanks for listening, and I will see you guys on Monday with a boots on the ground report from Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Cannot wait for that. Have a good weekend. See you guys.